How about now? A little better? Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Kerry Institute. I'm the Kerry Institute's Communications Director, Lori Bone, filling in for Dr. Schlesinger tonight. For the new faces, no? Let's see, how's that? Better? For the new faces in the crowd tonight, the Kerry Institute is a not-for-profit environmental research organization. We have a team of scientists that are actively working to research some of society's most pressing environmental issues, from infectious disease ecology to, you can't, too close. Up here. Sorry. So I'm getting mic lessons tonight, but it does seem a lot louder now. So, okay. So freshwater health, infectious disease ecology, and energy among the issues researched at the Kerry Institute. And the programs that we offer each Friday are sponsored in part by our Aldo Leopold Society. Many members are in the audience tonight, and we thank you dearly for your support. And if you enjoy these monthly programs, I encourage you to join the society or learn more about it. There's information on the table outside. And before I introduce tonight's speaker, I just want to mention briefly that on August 3rd, Kerry's Dave Strayer is going to be giving a lecture on the future of the Hudson River. And he's going to talk about a book that he wrote on the river, challenges that the river faces, and the river's recovery. It should be an exciting lecture, and I encourage you all to attend. And this evening, we're very pleased to have Jupp Kerckerinck here with us. And he is the president of the Shark Research Institute and a conservationist. And his road to sharks is a winding and interesting one. He was raised in a castle in Germany. He spent time in advertising. He was a race car driver. And he was the owner, or is the owner, of a 2,000-acre ranch in upstate New York, the Thousand Islands region. And following a dive that he took with sharks in 2003, he became a transformed man, deeply inspired by the events, and went on to found sharkprotection.com, an organization that seeks to educate people about sharks online. And recently, he was elected the president of the Shark Research Institute, a not-for-profit research organization that researches sharks and works to protect them in the wild. And tonight he will explain to us why, in the words of Sylvia Earle, the big concern isn't man eating sharks, it's man eating sharks. So with that, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Working. Yeah. Can everybody hear me? I don't have to lift it? No? Thank you very much, Lori. I want to thank the Kerry Institute for having me here, and I want to thank all the people who helped to get me here. I'm very happy to be able to talk to you tonight about my favorite animal, shark. Very often I get asked, why do I swim with sharks? I mean, Lori just explained I've done a lot of crazy stuff in my life. And a friend of mine once told me, he said, I know you're a little bit weird, but I didn't know you were crazy. And so if people ask me why I dive while I swim with sharks, I always say the very short answer is I just love it. And the longer answer is that I don't believe that we can protect a species without understanding it. So somebody has to go in the water with the sharks and see. We have to learn their body language, we have to learn their behavior, we have to learn how they react to situations. And I mean, we don't know it all, but we already made some progress in the last 10 years. I also want to show how beautiful they are. I mean, they are just amazing animals. They're very highly developed animals. And I think of all the large animals, they're not only the oldest, but also the most developed. They have senses that no other animal or human has. So that's what I want to show you. And people always think about sharks as, you know, monsters and the horrible man-eaters and whatever. And I think there are a lot more dangerous people in this world than there are dangerous animals. So I want to assure you, though, that everything I tell you tonight is really true. I mean, this is not Discovery Channel Shark Week. This is just my experience that I had with sharks. And I totally fell in love with sharks when I first saw the shark. I went diving, which I'll show you later on in a video. I'm getting ahead of myself. So first of all, I want to talk to you about the ocean. The ocean is the home of the sharks. And even though I'm not a biologist, I'm not a scientist, I always say you don't need a PhD to read a book by, let's say, Dr. Sylvia Earle, who wrote a wonderful book, The World is Blue. And she said that our fate and the ocean's fate are one. Because without a healthy ocean, we have no chance of living. It just won't work. So I learned diving when I was 60 years old because one of my daughters more or less forced me to do this. And I said, do I really have to learn diving at the age of 60? And she said, why not? So I said, why not? So I took her on a dive, but we were in a cage, and that's where I saw my first sharks, and I have a video about that. So anybody of you who is afraid of getting old, I would say when you're 63, just jump into the ocean and you'll be okay. So it's a lot of fun. Now we want to continue this. This is the home of the sharks, the ocean. And if the ocean isn't healthy, the sharks cannot live. And you will see that we have a lot of work to do in the ocean. The ocean covers 72% of our planet. And 28% is terra firma, so the ground we live on. And the same thing happens in our body. Our body is 72% liquid and 28% dry matter. So why is it that way? Because we all come out of the ocean. Life comes out of the water. And without, like Sylvia Earle says, no blue, no green. If the blue doesn't work, there will be no green. So we are all very much dependent on the ocean. Less than 1% of this very important thing, the ocean, is protected. Less than 1%. Everything else is totally unprotected. Anybody can do everything they want in international waters, as we'll see later. 1 billion people depend on the ocean. I'm not talking about those huge fisheries who loot the ocean. I'm talking about people who are mainly poor people who live near the ocean and who really have to live off the ocean. But right now we are catching fish in front of their noses. I just saw a video where a German or an EU fishery went to West Africa and is fishing right in front of the coast of West Africa with humongous trawlers and taking tons and multi-tons of fish out of the ocean. And the poor people who live there can't fish anymore because there's nothing left. And that's really a big, big problem. Here again, I quote Sylvia Earle. The ocean reaches you, even if you have never touched the ocean, it reaches you with every breath you take because the ocean produces oxygen, which we need, and every drop you drink and every bite you eat, everything is connected to the ocean. And people just forget that very often. It's our life support system. We cannot live without a healthy ocean. And that is one thing that I think the human species, we as a species, we are the only species who actively, knowingly, and intentionally risk our own demise by our behavior with nature and with the ocean. It's really a problem. 90% of all the large fish are gone. They're not there anymore. People have been fishing unsustainably, and it's just unbelievable. 1,000 scientists have written and signed a letter to the UN, and they quoted that by the year 2048, there will be no more fish in the ocean if we continue the way we are doing it now. I mean, this is total robbery and looting. And not only do we take millions of tons out of the ocean, we put millions of tons into the ocean, but unfortunately it's all garbage. You see, there's a scientist from the Scripps Ocean Institute, and this thing here is a floating island in the Pacific, and it's supposedly larger than the state of Texas. And it's all garbage. And garbage is the worst thing. It's the main killer of marine life in the ocean. And every plastic bag we use, which will fly away sooner or later, will end up in the ocean. The currents will take all the garbage, and there are gyres, as they call it, where the currents all get together. And that's one of them. Larger than the state of Texas. That's really, really, that's frightening. And it's not the only one. There's another one in the Atlantic, one in the Indian Ocean, and one east of Japan. So there are 4 altogether. The animals eat the plastic, and for whatever reason, they take the colored pieces first. They just like to eat the colored, and in the very end, when they don't find colored stuff anymore, then they eat the white plastic. But they seem to like the color ones. This turtle is eating plastic. She'll be dead within a few weeks after that. You know, it's something about plastic that, if those bags float in the ocean, they look like jellyfish. And there are a lot of animals who like to eat jellyfish. And they eat one plastic bag and they're gone. And that's what we do to the ocean. This is an albatross who ate plastic stuff. This is whatever they found in his stomach. It's really amazing. We have to be very, very careful. So now we're talking about sharks. This is my girlfriend Emma. Emma is a tiger shark, about 4.5 meters or so. It's about 13 feet. And a good-sized shark, but she's very friendly. I know her for 6 years now. And every year I go to the same place, and Emma has been there every single year. I've always been very afraid that she one year wouldn't show up because somebody killed her for the fins, but fortunately so far in the last 6 years that has not happened. And Emma is a shark you can play with. I mean, you can touch her, you can grab her by the dorsal fin, she'll pull you through the water, and they're very smart. I mean, they're not out to eat people. If they would eat people, if they would really like to eat people, there would be thousands of people getting killed in the ocean every single year. And that's not happening. This is another friend. Her name is Lucy. She lives in the Pacific in Mexico. She's a great white. And I have been diving there near an island called Isla Guadalupe. I went there 3 years ago, and I went there again last year in September. And I have done 17 dives with great white sharks in open water. And after this first trip where I was in a cage, I've never been in a cage again. So I just wanted to see them in their normal habitat. Just imagine that sharks are 430 million years old. They were 180 million years already when the first dinosaurs came up. So they have been there for many, many years. They have gone through 5 periods of extinction, and we are just very shortly before the 6th one, and I don't know if they can survive that one. So they are really survivors, and they are very, like I said before, very highly developed, intelligent animals. They are very important in the ocean because they keep the balance, the biological balance in the ocean, which is very important. If that balance goes, then the whole ocean goes, and we don't know what's going to happen then. So they're very, very important in the ocean. The ocean is the largest and most important ecosystem we have on Earth, and we should really do whatever we can to keep it healthy, because otherwise we couldn't live anymore. Now here I want to show you, this is a reef in the Bahamas. We found about 30 reef sharks, and reef sharks are very, very important because they live on one reef. If you take those reef sharks away from the reef, there will be years and years to come before another group of reef sharks will take that same reef. And 30 of them were on this humongous reef, and they all could live on it because they keep the balance with the other predator fish. And on a coral reef, sorry about that, on a coral reef, there are two things that compete with each other. One is a coral, the other one is an algae. So if this algae gets too big, it smothers the reef and the corals die. The corals are live animals and they die. So if the sharks weren't there or would keep the other predator fish, the numbers low, then the little fish who eat the algae would be eaten by the other fish, and then the algae would spread, and the more it spreads, the more it would kill the reef. So scientists have found out that you take the sharks away from a reef, it takes 1 year for the reef to die. And so you see how very important. There is an example, another example about the importance of sharks. In North Carolina, there was a humongous industry for scallops. And there were reef sharks, and they kept a certain ray down in numbers. It was a cow-nosed ray. And the cow-nosed ray loves to eat scallops. So with the sharks being there, they kept the numbers of the rays pretty low, and the scallops developed wonderfully. Then people killed all the sharks. And now this cow-nosed ray just multiplied. And they ate all the scallops before they could spawn. So they wiped out, by killing the sharks, people wiped out a $1 billion industry. And tens of thousands of people were out of a job because the scallops are gone. So that's what can happen. That's one example of what can happen if you kill the sharks in a reef. 30% of them are already at the brink of extinction. So that's a very dangerous situation. Sharks are very, very different from bony fish. I always say that sharks have as much to do with the bony fish than we have with chickens. That's how different they are. I mean, the whole skeleton is made out of cartilage, not out of bone. The only bone they have in their body is the jaw. And the skin is not, fish have scales. Sharks have millions of little teeth. And they're real teeth. They're hard on the outside and have pulp on the inside, but they are tiny, and every shark species has a different form of the tooth. And the whole body is covered with those teeth. And I think that's where the expression to rub somebody the wrong way came from. That's my interpretation of it. Because if you rub a shark from the tail to the head, your hand could start bleeding, because then you go against those teeth. If you rub them from the head to the tail, nothing happens. And what those teeth actually do is they improve the hydrodynamic of the shark. First of all, it can swim faster with the teeth, because the hydrodynamic is better. Secondly, they can swim without making noise, and they can sneak up on their prey easier that way. So it's a very important thing for the sharks. They don't have an air bladder like fish do, but they have a humongous liver. And in some shark species, they found out that the liver can make up to 60% of the whole body weight of the shark. And the liver is, a lot of people want that liver because there's a lot of stuff in there that they use for cosmetics and other things. So it's not only the fins, and the meat of a shark is not worth much. So sharks don't have gill plates like bony fish do. They have gill slits. Most of them have 5. A couple of species have 6, and there's one species that has 7. But normally they have 5 gill slits. The one thing that sharks have is what we all would like to have. They have, behind every tooth, they have 2 other teeth lying flat down. So if they lose a tooth, the second one just moves forward and stands up, and there they have a new one. They don't have to go to the dentist. So that's a good thing about it. 30,000 teeth is what one shark can use in a lifetime. And sharks can get quite old, some of them. So unlike bony fish, that's an interesting thing too. They have 3 different ways of reproducing. The one is that's mainly cat sharks, the little sharks. They lay eggs, and then the eggs just float in the ocean. They attach themselves somewhere. And then it takes up to 11 months for the egg to hatch. There's a little yolk in there and an embryo, and it feeds on the yolk, and after 11 months, it just bursts the shell open and the little shark is born. The second one is there are a lot of sharks like the hammerhead and the white shark and the bull shark and the tiger shark. They have babies like mammals do. They are connected to the mother with an umbilical cord. And just a year ago, somebody killed a hammerhead shark in Florida, even though that's illegal now, fortunately. That hammerhead was a female, and she had 49 babies in her belly. And they were all attached to the mother. So this guy kills 50 sharks with one, not with one stone, but with one try. So that's the second one. The third one is they have eggs. The female has eggs inside her body, inside her womb, and they hatch inside the female. But the female doesn't feed them. So the sharks who hatch the first, they eat the eggs that haven't hatched yet, or they eat the younger siblings, because the mother is not feeding them. And that's called intrauterine cannibalism, and ovophagy as the scientific name. But it's very, very interesting. Another thing about sharks, they cannot swim backwards. See, normal bony fish, they have those little fins and they can go backward. A shark cannot do that because shark can only propel himself forward with his tail, moving his tail back and forth. And I show you a video now, which I want to explain a little bit. There is a white shark and two divers in a cage. And the white shark went to the bait line. They normally have a line, there's a dead fish hanging to attract the shark. So somehow he got this bait line hooked into his teeth and couldn't get rid of it. And see what happens. So he's going crazy. Sharks can panic very easily. If you corner a shark, he'll bite his way to freedom. So this shark is kind of got his, by mistake, I think, his head into this cage. And it's just hitting with the tail and working his way deeper and deeper into this cage with the two divers in it. And those guys are getting a little nervous. And they even try to push the shark on one side. But he gets in deeper and deeper, and it gets bigger and bigger, so they finally do, the only right thing. Now they're getting the hell out of there. In the end, the shark was in the cage. It took about 4 hours to cut the cage and let the shark go. Nothing happened to the shark. It was totally unharmed. But quite an experience for those guys. Like I mentioned before, the sharks have very, very highly developed senses. They have, for example, hearing is very good. They hear low frequency sound better than high frequency because it travels further in underwater. There is a theory that sharks bite surfers because they think that a surfer looks like a seal. I don't quite believe that, but I don't have the scientific knowledge to dispute that. I think seals are 5 million years old and sharks are 430 million years old. I think they know each other by now. So I don't think they mistake a surfer for a seal. I rather think that a surfboard gives off a low frequency sound and the sharks are attracted to that. They're very, very inquisitive. And if something comes to their mind, they want to find out what it is. They have a sense of smell. 20% of their brain is for the sense of smell. They can smell a drop of blood in the amount of water that you need to fill a public swimming. 1 drop of blood. They smell it. But people always think sharks go for human blood. They don't. So I hear it all the time. Yeah, I hope you were not bleeding when you got into the ocean. So I said, no, they don't. In the contrary, some people have tried to attract sharks with human blood. There was a guy in Long Island called Captain Mondes. He claimed to have killed millions of sharks in his life. He had a policeman who brought from the morgue a little bottle of human blood, probably pretty illegally, but anyway. So they put the blood around the boat and they waited for 2 hours and nothing happened. And then they took fish blood and in 15 minutes the sharks were there. So human blood, I mean, we can put as much blood into the ocean as we want, they don't really react. Also, they have sight like we do. I mean, the eyes of a shark are more or less like ours. They have one thing behind the retina, like deer have, cats have. Those reflector plates who just help them to see better in the dark and in murky water. And then they have that which is called the tapetum lucidum. And people shouldn't go swimming in the ocean in the dark anyway. And not early in the morning and not late in the afternoon. I mean, it's kind of, maybe they don't see so well or they're feeding at the time, so it's not a good time to go into the ocean. They have something that is very, very interesting. They have a lateral line system, and I show it to you. Here's Emma again. And you can see this thing. There's the line going from the tail up to the brain. It's a little canal filled with a jelly-like fluid, and there are sensory hairs on the outside. They're connected to nerves on the inside, and they can sense an object by pushing water against it with their tail. And from the waves coming back, they want to find out what that object is. I mean, if quite often people swim in the ocean and they say, oh, there was a shark, he was circling me. That's what he's doing. He's not trying to find the best way to attack. He's trying to push water against this object. They don't know who we are. And hopes to get some answers what this object might be. Very, very interesting, a very, very highly sophisticated system. There's another one. It's called the ampullae of Lorenzini. Those are little pores. You see under the nose here, those little black dots. Those are, it's the same system, but they're single pores. They're filled with this jelly-like fluid, sensory hair on the outside, and then they are connected to nerves that go to the brain. And which is especially good for the hammerhead, because the hammerhead has those things under his head, under his hammerhead. And the favorite food of a hammerhead is are the stingrays. And the stingrays know that, so they like to kind of go into the sand and hide. But the hammerhead, with this system, the shark you saw before, the white shark, every shark who has those ampullae of Lorenzini, they can feel the heartbeat of a living creature on a distance from here to the second wall. And the hammerheads, they swim right above the ground, and they can feel the heartbeat of the ray who kind of was hiding in the sand, and they dig them out. So to them, that's a very important thing. Another thing is, though, also with those ampullae of Lorenzini, since they're so touchy, they can feel the electrical impulse of a camera. And if you go diving with tiger sharks or great whites, you should never have your camera around your neck, because the sharks like to take the camera, and if you have that camera around your neck, you go with them. And you never know when you get loose. So this is what sharks like to do. They just grab the camera and then they disappear, or they drop it within a few yards. I mean, but it's an interesting thing. Something about sharks that's not so nice for people, because their taste buds are right under the palate. So a shark has to take everything into his mouth in order to determine whether it's food or not. So if they don't, that's why they sometimes take a bite of it in a surfboard. They also sometimes take a bite of a person's arm, and if it's a big enough shark, that arm is gone. And then people bleed to death. And that's how most shark accidents really happen. Arms or legs, a foot cut, bitten off, and so on. And I was fortunate to film such an incident, which you will see right now. Here is my friend Emma again in action. She came over my head. I mean, I could have touched her belly, she was so close. But she didn't really want to come to me. She just went by. And then I lost interest. I said, well, Emma is coming around and around. So then all of a sudden I see her going straight up, and there's a guy snorkeling up there. And Emma goes up to him and grabs full into her mouth. And you know why this thing ended so abruptly? Because I was so scared. That was a friend of mine. And I dropped my camera, and I went up. I thought he needed help. And I came up there. We took him to the boat. The guy was in shock. I said, come on, it was just Emma. And it's a nice shark, you know, we all know her. But he had 14 holes in his dive suit. Around his waist, she had him full in her mouth. 14 holes in his dive suit, and he didn't have a scratch on his body. So I said, that was a love fight, man. And like I said before, if they really would like to eat people, thousands of people would get killed. Can you imagine that some scientist came up with a figure, how many people are swimming in the ocean every year? He came up with 7 billion. Because every time somebody goes in the ocean, if you go on a vacation, 10-day vacation, and you swim twice a day, that's 20 times you've been in the ocean. And counting it that way, he came up with 7 billion people who swim in the ocean every single year. And very few of them, between 50 and 70, get bitten by sharks worldwide. We have the global shark attack files at the Shark Research Institute. We know every single shark attack that is publicized, or even if it's not publicized. I don't think we're missing too many of them. So if you figure from 7 billion people, between 50 and 70 get bitten by a shark, and less than 10% of those die. I mean, the shark is really, of all the big and potentially dangerous animals, the one that kills the least people. But everybody thinks sharks. Every time I come back from a shark dive, people say, oh, I hope the sharks aren't hungry. I mean, this is kind of a 5-cent joke, you know. But I hear it all the time. Dogs, our best friend, the dog, they kill, in this country alone, they kill 6 times as many people as sharks do. But nobody suggests to get rid of the dog. So it's all hype. It's all about, and we have to keep one thing in mind, please. If you remember the movie Jaws, Jaws was a machine. It was not a shark. That was a Hollywood invention from Mr. Spielberg. The book Jaws wasn't even so bad. I mean, Peter Benchley himself said it towards the end of his life. He said, if I had known then what I know now, I could never have written the book. And he became a shark protector in the end. But Hollywood made it really, and the movie Jaws started a worldwide hunt for sharks. Unbelievable. I mean, millions and millions of sharks. And it's very, very sad. Shark paranoia. This is something really interesting. I want you to watch it. Can you see? Typical Sunday afternoon at the beach. People like crazy. They run down the little baby there sitting in the sand. Nobody wants to save that one. It's really amazing. But it's so true. This is what people think of sharks. And I would really like it very, very much, before I forget to mention that. If you all go home tonight and you have a different opinion of sharks than you had when you came, then I know I've done my job, and I hope that you will. This is Isla Guadalupe. This is the one I told you about earlier, my daughter Philippa and I, because she got me into diving. I wanted to do something nice for her. So I booked this trip, which I found on the internet. I had no idea what was going to happen. I had never, except for one time in the Bahamas, never really seen a shark. And so we went on this cage dive, and there was this very nice Mexican scientist, Dr. Felipe Galvan Magaña, and his job was to take DNA samples of great white sharks out of the cage. And since my daughter Philippa was studying marine biology at the time, I said, let's become friends with them and then we can help them. And we did. And this is Philippa filmed while I took a sample. This is a great white. And I poked this guy 3 times without getting anything. And I could tell by the way he looked at me that he didn't like me anymore. And he came closer all the time, closer and closer to the cage. And he always looked at me. Right there. There's that little spear. We had this spear was about 5 feet long with a very sharp hollow point in the front. We're trying to scrape a little skin off them, which was very difficult because the skin is so tough. There it comes closer. And now I got the sample, and you can see just a little white dot there. There. Where I took some skin, and then the trick was to get it into the cage, you know, because they wash out very easy. But we got 4 samples of 9 sharks, and that was pretty good, I guess. So that's the first time I really saw a shark close by, and that's when it really hit me. And I said, I want to swim with those animals outside of a cage. And I went to the Bahamas again, and I participated in a shark school where they tell you how to behave when you see a shark and all this. And then when we went on our first dive trip, one of the crew went down and came back after 15 minutes and said, yeah, I've seen 15 sharks on there. And everybody jumped in, and I said, am I really crazy? I said, I was 64 years old at the time. I said, do I really need to do that? And then I said, well, if I don't do it now, I probably never do it. And I jumped in, and then I really fell in love with them, and that's how it all happened. So a smart guy once said, it's the sharks die, the oceans die. And like I mentioned before, the whole system will break down. And a scientist from Denmark wrote a letter to me, and he said, well, I said then probably life on Earth is over if we lose the oceans. And he said, well, life on Earth will never be over, it will always go on, but if the life of the human race is still okay, that we don't know. So we are very dependent. 50 to 60% of the oxygen we breathe comes from the ocean. Only 20% comes from the rainforest, and now probably less and less because they kill them all too. But that's really amazing. And we get everything from the ocean. We get our rain, we get our snow, we get our climate. Everything is controlled by the ocean, and that's very important. So we must protect the sharks. Like I said before, they do not produce oxygen. So I don't want anybody to get that wrong. Oxygen is produced. The funny thing is, the smallest creature in the ocean is the mightiest creature in the ocean. And that's the plankton. And the phyto or phytoplankton, whatever you want to call it, that through photosynthesis, that creates oxygen. And I did that once on a television show in Germany, and I told this guy, I said, now everybody breathe 10 times and look at your watch. And when I breathe in and out, normally if I'm not too excited, it takes about 30 or 35 seconds. And I said, now the next 35 seconds, you only breathe half of the amount that you were breathing before, and I guarantee you cannot do that 5 times in a row. Because then you know how it feels to lose 50% of your oxygen. And that was a pretty good thing, and this guy did it in a television show in front of the cameras, which they normally don't like to do. So now the question is, what happens? You know, if the marine life will be wiped out, we can all eat jellyfish. They will survive. We know that. And the green algae will cover all the reefs, and so basically the ecosystem ocean will go down the hill. Dr. Earle, which I like to quote because she is one of the legends in oceanography and marine biology, She says we have 10 years to save the ocean. And the one thing is, we know the situation. If we don't do anything to save the ocean, then it's our own fault when everything goes to hell. We know there is a problem, but there's nobody there who wants to do anything. Governments, they just met in Rio. What did they do? Nothing. You know, before that they met in Copenhagen, and they met in I don't know where else, in Kyoto, and they just don't do anything. Nobody has the guts. We kill everything. We kill millions and millions of sharks. 70 million sharks are being killed for a soup in China alone, every single year. You know, it's just, it's a bad situation. So swimming with sharks has taught me, after the first fright that I had when I had to jump into the water knowing there were 15 sharks on there, it really changed my life, and it really showed me that the monster is really not a monster. It's a very intelligent, highly sophisticated animal. And it was a surprise to me because I was taught all the time, you know, sharks, they eat people and they're terrible, and we don't need sharks. There's still a lot of people who say we don't need sharks in the ocean. We should kill them all and then we can go and swim and nobody will bite us. Yeah, but if you can't breathe anymore, I mean, what's worse? So this is a very, very nice dive I took. This was in Costa Rica, Cocos Island. It takes about 36 hours by boat to get there from the mainland. And we used to go out at night and see those are white-tip reef sharks. And there were maybe 100 of them. And they were hunting for little fish. And we were right over them with our flashlights and looking at them. And every once in a while, if you didn't pay attention, you would sink down and get too close to them. They would just push you out of the way, but they never were biting us. They were just, we were just bothering them. This was a lot of fun. I like to do those night dives. So it's amazing how they go under those rocks and they push those rocks up, and as if they're very, very tough skinned, like I said before, and they can do that. And this is one of the sharks that can sleep in the daytime. You know, years ago, they found nurse sharks in caves underwater, and it was a sensation. It was the first shark that they recognized that could stay in one thing. Now, this is a very, very cute situation. The hammerheads have to go through a cleaning station every single day. And there are those yellow, and then those kind of dark blue, white and yellow, those are king angelfish, and the other yellow ones are the barber fish. And they eat the parasites out of their wounds. If they wouldn't do that, the sharks could eventually die, because they fight each other. They're mainly, I've seen lots and lots of hammerheads, hundreds of them, and mostly females. And whenever a male comes into the group, then the females start fighting. And they have those bite marks. You can see probably those white things on the body there. This is bite marks. They either fight or it's also mating. The shark mating is very rough business, so they get a lot of injuries from that too. So here, this is what I said before, 17 million sharks slaughtered every single year, and most of them go to China for shark fin soup. And the worst thing of all is long line fishing. They have long lines, fishing lines of up to 40 or more miles, which they pull through the ocean. This is one of the hooks. And on those lines, they have maybe 10,000 of them. And they're all baited and on a little float. So they don't sink down. They swim right under the surface. Everything that takes the bait, whether it's a dolphin, a seal, a shark, a turtle, everything gets pulled through the water for 24 hours, so by the time they bring the line in, everything is dead. And then they say, oh, we only wanted bluefin tuna. So then they start finning the sharks, dead or alive. They get their fins cut off, and then the shark is thrown back. And then everything else is thrown back. Up to between 25 and 50% of their catch is wasted, killed and wasted. And they do it every single year. And there are millions of tons of marine life which is just plain wasted. And this is such an exploitation of the ocean that really needs to be stopped. But they go into international waters. You know, there are countries where the finning is illegal. This is finning. And I have a little video. There is one scene in there that's a little graphic, but I think you can all handle that. But coming back to the finning, in most cases the fins are being cut off, or the shark is still alive. And then the shark is kicked back in the water and they sink. They can't swim anymore because they have no fins. The tail fin is taken off. And then they go down to the bottom of the ocean and they die a horrible death of suffocation because they can't get oxygen anymore. And I always say, just imagine if somebody would catch a little Bambi in the woods and cut off all its 4 legs and throw it back in the brush. I mean, people would go crazy, ballistic, you know. Every animal rights person in the world would go nuts. But if that happens to millions of sharks every day, nobody really cares. And that's a big problem. Governments don't do anything. Some countries have made finning illegal, like the US, Australia. Even the EU has made finning illegal, but one of the largest exporters of shark fins in the EU is Spain. So there are so many loopholes that, and also those people work in international water. So there's nobody who can police it, except for the UN. They don't do it because there's so many countries against it who make money. The finning mafia makes more money than the drug runners. And it's a real mafia. I mean, they kill people who get into their way. It's very, very nasty because they make so much money. I've seen the video where this photo came out of, and those sharks were still alive. And they get finned alive. This is a video. I'll tell you afterwards.
Hi, my name is Amy. My husband and I have joined a no shark finning contest to raise awareness for shark finning and the need to conserve sharks. Friends and family quickly got behind to support us. However, we felt something was missing. To raise awareness for shark finning and the need to conserve sharks. Up to 73 million sharks are killed for their fins every year. No one has data of the actual figures. All we know are over 1/3 of all ocean shark species are at an increased threat of extinction, with as many as 25 species likely to become extinct within our lifetime. With a growing demand for shark fins, some scientists say that if we keep killing sharks at this rate, they may be all gone in as little as 10 years. Shark fins are worth up to $650 per kg, while the rest of the shark's body is worth roughly 85 cents per kg. Because of the huge difference in value, many fishermen just slice off the shark's fins and tails while still alive and dump them back into the ocean to drown or bleed to death. A process which can take up to 50 minutes. This process is hugely wasteful, as 95% of the animal is wasted. This is called shark finning. In the Northwest Atlantic Ocean, the decline in sharks has caused the population of their prey, such as rays, to increase. As the rays increase, the prey like bay scallop have almost been wiped out. This is known as a cascade effect. Sharks are extremely important to our marine ecosystem. Without sharks performing the role of a top predator, the rest of the ocean ecosystem will be thrown out of balance, putting our ocean at risk. Is it worth it?
This is an amazing thing because swimming through those hundreds of hammerheads is something you will never forget. But what I wanted to say about this video, why I like this video so much, this video was done in China by a young couple, and they are Chinese. And China eats shark fin soup. So we are trying very, very hard to get the message into China, especially to young people, to stop eating shark fin soup. There are people who, there's a photographer, Michael Orr in Hong Kong, he brought 1,000 kids together and they all publicly pledged that they would never eat shark fin soup in their life. Now the Chinese government has announced that they said within the 3 years they will have a law that the government, no government function will ever serve shark fin soup again. So I think we're making progress, and that's a very, very important. That's why I think this video is so important. A thing like that coming out of China, that is pretty rare. So now we come to the United States. There are new laws on the West Coast. Hawaii was the first state, then came Oregon, Washington State, and then California. They all have made the possession and the trade of shark fins illegal, which I think is the only way to stop it. You have to say you cannot even have a shark fin in your house anymore. It's against the law. And we are working very hard. There was just a bill signed into law in Illinois. We worked on New York, and the New York Senate said that they wanted to vote on it, but they ran out of time. Those guys don't do overtime, I guess. I mean, I was really a little bit upset, but we are hoping that in the next session it'll pass, because it already passed the Assembly with a very high margin, and we had a lot of senators sponsoring it. But the Shark Research Institute was very, very much involved in it. And we do whatever we can. I talked to a senator in Florida who promised me to take care of it, but then he didn't do anything. There's a law pending in New Jersey. There's a law pending in Maryland. So if we make the possession and trade of shark fins illegal, then we can really save a lot of sharks. Other than that, it's just not possible to do anything. Those are the countries: Japan, Taiwan, China, Indonesia, Costa Rica, and Spain. And here you see a shark that has been finned, sank to the ground, and is suffocating because it can't breathe anymore. They have to move to get water into the mouth that goes out through the gills, where the exchange of oxygen happens. And if they can't swim, they can't breathe. So this guy is dying a terrible death. Here's another one. They even forgot to cut his tail off. There is something, International Union, they have put together the countries who are most active in shark catching. And you see number 3 is Spain, even though it's illegal to fin in the EU. Even the US is on 8th place. But you see, and then very interesting is that 35% of all the sharks killed are killed by the first 4 nations. There's one thing about sharks, they have a real value to communities. People have found out in 3 countries, they all came to the same conclusion. They found out that one reef shark in his lifetime can produce $1.8 million in revenue. Because there are people, divers coming, there's tourism coming. Sharks are worth a lot more alive than dead, but everybody always said that only a dead shark is a good shark. So what makes the sharks so vulnerable? In the early days, sharks were the main predators, the apex predators in the ocean. And so because of that, their reproduction is very slow. They have to get quite old to reach sexual maturity. Some sharks have to be 15, maybe 20 years old until they can reproduce. And that used to be okay, but today with our modern way of catching, with our modern fleets and longline and whatever else they do, it doesn't work anymore. So they cannot produce enough offspring to survive. The great white shark, scientists all agree that there are about 3,500 great white sharks left in the world. 10% of those are females in breeding age, and they cannot reproduce enough to keep the great white shark going. People fear that maybe in 15, 20 years the great white shark will be gone. They just don't exist anymore because they get killed. One of the things that China likes, they want to eat shark fin soup, which has actually no taste. It tastes like whatever chicken broth or whatever you pour over it, but it's an old tradition. In reality, it's a sign of nouveau, rich people, to show that they have the money, because one little bowl of soup can cost between $50 and $100. So if anybody can afford that, he can show that he's very, very wealthy. And that's what it's all about. This is what a kitchen should look like when people cook shark meat, because it's full of organic mercury. They have done new analysis in Germany in 2 universities, Mainz and Kiel, and they found out unbelievable amounts of organic mercury in shark meat, even as much as 60 times what the EPA thinks is okay, which is 7 micrograms per person per day. But they found in 1 kilogram of blue shark, they found 1,450 micrograms of organic mercury, which comes naturally because inorganic mercury is converted into organic by microbes in the ocean, and then it gets into the food chain. And the fish who live the longest, they eat the most other fish in their life. They have so much of it. Tuna is not a very good thing either. It goes to every barrier in the human body. So you have to, this is the one where I just said 60 times the amount. And then if women want to become pregnant, they should not eat tuna, because it's so high. There was a thing in Japan, in Minamata Bay, 3,000 people died. Women had mentally and physically handicapped children by the dozens. And the same thing happens in Denmark right now, where they kill all the pilot whales because the young men think that it's a way into mandom, whatever. They kill 230 pilot whales every year and eat the meat, and the people are all sick. So shark meat and tuna, I mean, if you eat one month of tuna, that's fine, but if you eat it every day, it's really very, very bad for you. It goes to every normal barrier of the human body. So this is shark attacks. Yeah, people always talk about shark attacks, but like I mentioned before, happen really very, very few times according to the amount of people who swim in the ocean. And I don't like to call them attacks, I call them accidents, because from what I found, I mean, I've done 200 dives in my life, even though I was an old guy when I started, but I've never ever been in a situation where a shark only came at me in an aggressive manner. I mean, I've swum with all kinds of reef sharks, with great white sharks, I have a video in a few minutes, and hammerheads and tiger sharks, and I never had this problem. But if the media gets, there was this very interesting thing 2 days ago, they had it on television. In Nantucket, I think, there were 2 spearfishermen, they were in the water, and all of a sudden they saw a great white shark swimming by, and then the shark came at them, just to look at them, you know, and then they poked him with a spear, and then he took off and swam away. And the girl, and that was on CNN News, that was big news, that there was a shark in the ocean. Amazing, I couldn't believe it. And there will be, in 10 years, there will be big news if there is still a shark. That will be big news if we continue this. But it's really amazing. Then the girl, after she produced this story as big news, she said, well, at least they live to talk about it. Yeah, great. Now, if anybody wants to swim in the ocean, I have a few tips for you. It's really important that if you swim in the ocean, it's not our turf. So we are going into the shark's world, so we have to do certain precautions to make sure nothing happens. I always say everybody who swims in the ocean should always wear goggles and a snorkel. You don't have to put the goggles on, but put them around your neck. You should have them with you, because it's very important. If you find a shark, stay calm. Don't try to swim away. I mean, it sounds crazy, but the shark is faster anyway. So once you get it in your head that you should not even try to frantically swim away, just stay where you are, don't move. Put your feet down in the water and just stand still. And if you have the goggles, put them on And look into the water and always look the shark into the eye. That's the most important thing. Some people splash with their hands and feet. Yeah, that'll bring in more sharks because they hear them from a very far distance away. So that doesn't help. And go vertical in the water. It's a funny feeling because the feet are going far away from your head. And you don't know what happens down there, but if you have goggles, you can see it. And if you look a shark in the eye, he will probably, in 99.9% of all cases, just swim away. So that's how people should behave. Never should anybody do what this idiot did. Just watch it. This guy is trying to hand feed bull sharks. And the bull sharks are known to be the most aggressive sharks of all. It's the only shark I don't trust because to me they're like robots. They have no personality and they have no body language. But this guy has a little dead fish in his hand and wants to feed. They're very careful. See, this one just didn't take it at the first try. But just wait what happens now. I mean, to feed a bull shark by hand is stupid enough, but to not feed him then in the last second, that's stupid. So this bull shark bit him right in the elbow, and all the cloud you see is blood. Everything you see up there is blood. And that's pretty stupid to do. People are crazy. Tiger shark. This is interesting. This is about the biggest tiger shark I've ever seen in my life. And as somebody told me later, you don't see her very often, but she has a nickname and it's called the school bus. And we were down, that was the same reef that I showed you before with all the reef sharks. And we never expected a tiger shark there because they're not supposed to be there. But she was there. And yeah, she looked at us a couple of times. Said, "You monk shark." And then she was interested in something completely different. Because we had those milk crates, plastic milk crates, and they were stuffed with dead fish, and we had them hanging in the ocean on those styrofoam balls. And that's where she wanted to go. And she probably smelled that on a long distance and came right up. But that was quite exciting, yeah, I must say. See, this is what she wanted. She wanted that crate. And she worked on it. And I tell you, that shows you how intelligent they are. She figured out exactly what was going on there.
What was that made of? What is that made of?
The crate? I didn't get the crate.
What is it made of? Plastic.
Yeah, it's a plastic milk crate. Now she figured out how that was attached. And that was a nylon line, which was about as thick as my thumb. And that was like a piece of yarn to her. And she ate this bloody thing. But sharks can regurgitate everything they can't digest, so it doesn't kill us. But I don't know what she... And then she went straight down. She didn't miss it by an inch. She went down and grabbed the crate, and that's when we ran out of film. Now this is the dive I just did last September. We went down in a crate to about 50 feet, but we were too many divers, and the guy who takes us down is the only one who lets you get out of the crate with a great white shark. Here you see me taking photos. I always turn around 360 degrees. I want to make sure there's no shark behind me. Sometimes they like to sneak up on you, but and he only had two divers out. And there's one guy, a safety diver. He had a broomstick with him. That was our only weapon we had, and he himself was filming. This is also again Guadalupe, Isla Guadalupe, in Mexican waters in the Pacific. And you see those white sharks. I mean, they were pretty good-sized sharks, but they didn't really pay too much attention. Some of them came closer, and others just stayed away from it. This one came fairly close, just looking, and then he turned around and took off. It was a wonderful dive, a great situation. And we did, well, in 2 years, I told you, I took 17 on both dives. We went, every day we had 3 great white sharks around us, and on one day we even had 5. It was really exciting. But they were not in the least interested in us. I mean, it's really amazing how they just swam around there, did their thing. And didn't even look at us. I was really disappointed. But I have quite a few good photos from that dive in my book. If anybody wants to buy the book, it's upstairs. I'd be happy to sign it if you want me to. The money, I had the book printed in Germany. I had them sent over here. I had 750 of them done. Even though I wrote the book and I paid for the printing, the money after what the bookstore gets goes 100% to the Shark Research Institute. So I'm not putting anything of that money into my own pocket. I just want you to know if somebody is interested in it. See, here's the safety diver with the broomstick. And I mean, if you see this and then talk about those 2 guys and have a CNN news report about seeing the shark in the ocean, it's kind of funny. Well, if a shark gets kind of frisky and comes too close, you can push them away a little bit. You don't want to hurt them, but you just want to tell them, leave me alone. And but we never had to use it. They didn't come that close. They were not aggressive. There's a friend of mine from Germany. He just tried to get on the dorsal fin, but that's a little touchy. But unfortunately, he didn't make it. The shark was too fast. Well, thank you very much. Yeah. Any questions? Yeah. Yes.
What do you suggest is the most efficient thing for just somebody like us in the audience to do?
What you get, well, the thing anybody could do is just talk about it. Tell as many people as you can, because people just don't know. You know, 10 years ago I didn't know. And I'm always surprised that a lot of people, I mean, I give presentations, I go to colleges, I go to schools. Best questions I ever got came from schools. 7th grader asked wonderful questions here in Pine Plain. But even in Rotary clubs, I mean, those are intelligent business people, but they have no idea what happened in the ocean. And so they were all very appreciative if you tell them. So I think that's the one thing. And then find a good, I mean, if anybody really feels the urge of getting rid of some money, I mean, Shark Research Institute will be very happy. They even give you a tax-deductible receipt where totally recognizes, what do you call it, tax-free, whatever. But yeah, talking about public awareness is very important, and helping some organization to do their job. And like I said, if you all change your mind about what you thought about sharks before you came in, I'd be very happy. So that really helps, you know. What else can I do? I'm not a scientist. I don't do any research myself. We have researchers in the institute who do that. But, so they all need money, they need help, they need support. I have some brochures up there on the table. Anybody wants to take them, you're welcome to. Yes?
I was wondering, how long did these shark encounters take? Was it something that was over in a matter of seconds, or were these sharks actually choosing to circle you, check you out, and hang out? Because they're not showing interest in the fish that are around them.
Oh, this one with the white sharks, you mean? I was out of the cage for 30 minutes.
So they stayed with you for 30 minutes
Yeah,
just
they
hanging
stayed
out?
around. They're very, very inquisitive or nosy, whatever you want to call it. If they see something they don't know, they like to stick around. As long as you don't hurt them, then they might bite you or they might take off. But yeah, 30 minutes. Normally, there's a place in the Bahamas where I go and visit Emma. It's only 22 feet deep. So my bottle lasts almost 2 hours. So sometimes I just lie on the back and let the shark come. This one reef where the 30 reef sharks were, after a while I said, well, there's nothing happening here, so there was a little sand area. I just lied down on my back and looked at the shark, and then there were 3, and then there were 5, and then there were 7, and then there were 8. And I said, it's probably time to get up because I think I'm already half dead. You know? And also, for a shark, everything that floats on top of the water is already half dead. And the tiger sharks especially, they're scavengers. They like to eat stuff that's already half dead because then they don't have to put too much energy in. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Good. Yes.
I give you a personal testimony. I had an experience last week where I go with the sharks. I'm not a particularly brave person. One of the reasons I came in tonight, I was so moved by the experience. It was absolutely incredible.
Thank you very much.
They're such gentle creatures.
Yeah, they are. They are. I mean, yeah, I mean, you have to respect them. I mean, they are wild animals, and they can potentially bite you, and they can even kill you, but they normally don't. So, and if you look at how important they are, and how wonderful they are, and all the senses they have, and highly developed, and how old they are, we should really start killing them for bloody soup that has no taste.
All right, since most of us have everything we could ever possibly want or wish for here, what is it we can stop consuming? What can we do less of or take less of to change this?
Well, first of all, what you can do is if you go to the city and you go to a Chinese restaurant and they serve shark fin soup, tell them they should stop it. Other than that, a lot of people think that shark parts of their bodies are for medicine, but a doctor in the Mayo Clinic has totally denied that. There's nothing on a shark that will help you. Some people say it's against colorectal cancer or whatever. It doesn't help. It's total nonsense. So shark things that mainly people consume are the fish. But like I said before, public opinion and public education. I think that's very, very important. And gosh, if everybody here tonight talks to 5 people about it, that's pretty good, you know.
So
Yes. Did you have a question?
Oh, do you have any affiliation with Greenpeace?
No, I don't. I mean, I have nothing against them. I have affiliation with Sea Shepherd, and he's one of the founders of Greenpeace. And just now, while I was in Germany, he entered Germany and he got arrested. And he was in jail in Germany, and he's out of jail now, but they still don't allow him to leave the country. I have no idea. I sent letters to the Minister of Justice. She never answered me. I sent letters to Mrs. Merkel and to our foreign minister. It's a phony warrant from Costa Rica for an incident that happened 10 years ago while they were filming the film. Have you ever seen the film Shark Water? There's this incident where they were supposed to bring in a vessel that was finning sharks, and the vessel didn't go with them and took off, so they rammed it a couple of times. Now they claim that people have been injured, and this Costa Rican warrant is so phony that even Interpol said we are not going to arrest this man on this warrant alone because it's politically motivated. You know. So that's what happened.
Are you saying that all killing of sharks is for the fin? There is no other reason?
No, that's not true. It's mainly for the fins. About 70 million sharks for the fins, and there are a few thousand or maybe a few 100,000 killed in shark tournaments. They have shark tournaments here in Montauk every year, and a lot of those people now go to catch and release, which I think is a great idea. But even catch and release, half of them die anyway, because it's very, very tough, depending on where the hook is. We had a shark in the Bahamas, and her nickname was Hook. All the tiger sharks I ever saw were females. I've never seen a male tiger shark. And she had a hook still hanging in her mouth. And there were, I don't know if you saw that one of the reef sharks, I showed them the reef had a ripped up mouth here and was on a hook. So yeah, some of them still die, but it's better than killing them all for a photograph because nobody wants to eat them. The fins, yeah, they make a lot of money with that thing. No, there are other ways. I mean, then there are accidental catches. You know, people go fishing and then all of a sudden a shark. I had to admit about 30 years ago, I had a shark on my part in Kenya, and we were out for bonitos, and one of them took off, and there was a big shark on there. Fortunately, I didn't get him in the boat. He cut the line. So yeah, there's a lot of shark fishing, which is not illegal in most countries. It should be, by the way they are going now, by the way they're being killed. It should become illegal.
Well, thank you so much for, sorry.
One more?
Is there any sign that enough people in the world, even beyond private citizens, many governments, have gotten this message and are trying to do something?
Yes. The very first head of state who ever declared his entire territory a shark sanctuary was the president of Palau. And 2 years ago, when he came to New York for the opening of the UN, of the session there, I was invited to sit in this big hall there when he gave his presentation, and he called for a moratorium on finning, and he called for more help for the oceans and the sharks. And this spring I went to Palau to visit him. We gave him an award from the Shark Research Institute, the Heritage, Ocean Heritage Award, and he's a very, very nice man. I just saw him in Palau this spring. And so he has done. Then the next one in line was the president of Honduras. Now it's the Marshall Islands, it's Guam. I mean, it's getting better and better all the time. Now the law in Hawaii, California, Oregon, Washington State. So the West Coast is basically closed. So now I hope that we can close the East Coast. It's very difficult. You know, I remember this senator, I was giving a presentation in Key West, and there was a senator and 2 assemblymen. And they asked if anybody had a question. I got up and I said, I never had 3 politicians here in a situation where I can ask them the question, they can't run away. And then I asked if they would help me get this bill or get a bill going in the state of Florida and get a law and make the possession and trade illegal. And the senator said, you just get me the laws, he meant the law from Hawaii and California, you just get me the law and I'll take care of it. And he was a senior senator of Florida, and he is not running for re-election. And unfortunately, he never did. Sounded good to all the people who were sitting there, and I was really amazed. I never thought a politician would ever say that, but he did, but then he didn't do anything. So it's very difficult to get the people moving because some of them have interest. But for example, here in New York, there is an assemblywoman who is Chinese, and she said, I will miss shark fin soup because I've had it since I was a child, and my whole family eats it, but we just can't have it anymore because we are endangering a whole family of animals, 500 species of sharks. They're all kind of endangered. Cool.
Excellent. Well, we can take more questions outside. I'm sure we're
Mhm.
signing books. And thank you again so much for coming and
My
educating
pleasure.
us. And thank you.